So the first thing we're going to talk about is competition. So I know I talk to people all the time and they feel overwhelmed by the competition. There are just so many people doing what you're doing, even in your city, right, within miles of your office. So I wanted to just kind of pick your brain, thoughts on competition and how to stand apart in a competitive landscape.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it tails off. When I go in and evaluate a practice and the opportunities, a lot of it is about the practice, but there are two external factors that you have to take into consideration anytime you're doing anything. One is the market that you're entering into. Is the market attractive from a geo-target standpoint, from the people who you're basically targeting to? And the second part is in the competition. So let me address the competition and so forth, and the issues of differentiating. First of all, I feel in my own experience, people don't spend enough time looking at their competitors. And it's a really, really important thing to do, because everything that we do in business is relative to the competition. It's not an absolute discussion or a service offering or a mission. It's always relative to your competitors and to some extent relative to your market. Most people don't do a great job. And there are best practices out there that do a phenomenal job. They have ambassadors that go out there that actually visit these other places. They do mystery calls and mystery shopping and so forth. They are evaluating their service offerings on Instagram or on Facebook or any of the social medias and seeing if there's any updates in their websites. They're looking at, quite frankly, how well they're doing, in terms of testimonials and rankings and everything else and so forth. And so, the first thing I wanted to say is spend some time really going into the marketplace and looking at the top, if not 3-5 top competitors, based upon the likely service offerings and likely procedures that you're planning on implementing or have in place. This is a dynamic market. Just like yourself, competitors are also likely to change, and it's important to understand that evolution and the dynamics. Now, relative to competition, to how to differentiate yourself, first of all, there are many ways of differentiating yourself, but from a brief standpoint on this call, I will take 3 differentiating factors that other practices have used. One is technology in their practice, and we'll talk about technology in a second. The second thing is the service offering that they're doing. And then third is the level and the quality of the service that they're actually providing, the journey to that customer. So let me start with the last one, because people I don't think understand how important it is to be able to differentiate themselves just on the experience that these patients have coming into your practice. I can't tell you how many times, I've gone into a practice and nobody pays attention to me coming in, at the front reception. The music is too loud. The reception area is disheveled and so forth. I'm coming in and taking money out of my own pocket, especially in this market right now where there are clearly headwinds ahead of us with a political election, a very important one this year, as well as some of the more recent employment numbers, which aren't as high as everyone wanted them to be. And so, taking money out of people's pocket and having them not only spend it with you, but spend it in multiple times during the year and sustain that spending with you, that loyalty and that trust has to be around that experience. And I think we've talked about a little of these before. I have a practice in London that she offers prayer rugs to her Arab clients because they may be there during certain times of the year. Other places they bring lunch on a tray with glass, not with plastic. And there are others and so forth who decide to have a very clean, hospital-like, aseptic, kind of white environment. And that's okay as well, as long as you understand what you're offering and realize what you're not offering relative to the competitors out there. And that's where that mystery shopping uncovers a lot of things that are done, whether or not the TV is on, whether it's on an endless loop, whether there's iPads that are handed out at reception. There's a lot of ways of differentiating that practice, as well as following up with that patient's procedure once it's been done, whether it's a new patient or an existing patient. Best practice is 2 days later, within the first 2 days, call the patient and said, how was your experience? Was everything okay, and so forth? Is there anything you'd like me to convey to the doctor or to provider, prior to your next to your next visit, etc. So there's a lot of ways to differentiate yourself from the competitor. And guess what? That doesn't really cost a lot of money. It's about paying attention, detailed attention to that customer and that customer journey and experience. Second thing is we can talk about let's talk about technology. There's a lot of technology out there, and it's not just technology relative to energy-based devices, which allows for multiple different types of procedures that are being taken care of to take care of a clinical particular issue that you may have in your face or a body and so forth. It's also the technology and the practice. Some practices have actually apps that they've put together so that their patients can better and more efficiently and more effectively communicate with them. And it's a little more stickiness when you have an app like that. There are others that, for instance, try to reduce the amount of time and attention that patients spend filling out all of those lengthy and arduous forms that we all dismay about when we go into any medical practice and hear constantly the repetitive same old questions. And there are many practices out there that have patient portals where you can actually electronically take care of these before you go in, sign off everything, and even get a QR code that would load up all of the information that you wanted to relay prior to that visit. And then there's the energy-based devices that can range anywhere from body sculpting all the way through some levels of advanced skin rejuvenation and skin laser surfacing. And those are ways to be able to tell people that you've made an investment in this practice, you've made it for them, you're trying to increase the clinical efficacy of what's being done there, and you've taken money out of your own pocket and maybe taken a loan or financing or lease on a very expensive equipment for their benefit and so forth, to offer them what you think is the best service possibilities in that geo target. The third way of differentiating yourself from the competitors is in your service listing. And there are two ways of playing out that game. One is the Clint Eastwood, do you feel lucky? Well, do you? And that's hitting them straight ahead, which is a direct confrontal attack on those other competitors. And there are many, many ways of being able to do that, from a service listing to a service listing basis and so forth, relative to what you're offering and how you're offering. The second way, and especially if you're coming into the market late, or there's been a pause in your business, or there's a rebranding going on, is as importantly being able to flank the competition with service offerings that they are not directly either involved with or are indirectly marketing. So, and there are many, many examples out there that people took. People took the wellness approach many times to get into an aesthetic market, establish themselves from a wellness side, either through hormone replacement or weight loss. We'll talk about those a little later in another question that you might have. But they might start with that. They may come out with that knowing that there isn't direct competition with that, get that patient in, gain their loyalty, increase that experience with that patient, use the technology they have with them, and then come out the back door with with more of an aesthetics offering. So there's a lot of ways, and this is something that in my initiation of any advisory role, and so we spend 2 or 3 days talking about the market, and we talk about the competition, and we talk about the positives and negatives, and we whiteboard this, and out of that, there's a lot of realizations about whether I have the offering, whether I have the technology, and quite frankly, whether I have the services that I want to either lead with, either directly or indirectly. So it's a very complex area. It's a very good question. My first recommendation is go out, make sure you know your competition, because if you don't know your competition, any road is going to take you down there, and there will be explosives along the way.
Yeah, I love that. So let me know if I'm off base here. But what it sounds like you're saying to me, and this is what I completely agree with, is that it's these little differences stacked up on top of each other that are going to allow you to differentiate and create a successful business. It's probably not that you're going to be doing something that's revolutionary and dramatically different. It's dotting your I's, crossing your T's, and figuring out a way to become incrementally more attractive than the other people in your area that do similar things to what you do, right? It's like, how do we optimize for patient experience, quality, reputation? How do we optimize for price and attractiveness with price points, convenience, experience, all those types of things, right? It's like, let's
Absolutely.
figure.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
game is won by singles going around the bases, not by home runs or triples anymore. I continue to say that, and I will continue to say that, because you can also win games just by getting people on base. And, as you said, it's those little things sometimes that, that make a difference and so, but it's that birthday card that they were least expecting from their local med spa or their dermatologist or their plastic surgeon that makes a difference. It makes a difference when you walk in the room and amongst all of the other people in the reception area, and you might be a VIP there, that they actually, without even knowing who you are, greet you by your first or your last name. And that creates a certain level of confidence in yourself going into somewhat of an uncertain, unpredictable, what's going to happen, when I come out of this med spa or derm practice or plastic surgery procedure. And it creates a level of comfortableness that we all try to strive to be, part of that, that local bar on Cheers, so to speak.
Yeah, you need your med spa to feel like you said, the Cheers bar. Otherwise, you're too susceptible to price shopping. If people don't think there's anything exceptional about the experience and the relationship, and they think they can get the same thing cheaper somewhere else, and they're thinking of it as an apples to apples comparison, then you're putting yourself at risk to lose that business. And this is an industry that relies on retention. So all of those things I think are absolutely critical. I think
Yeah.
that was awesome advice. Thanks,
And
Lewis.
I'll to tell you how difficult it can be. So there was a coffee shop I won't name the coffee shop, but in a certain town, and they had been established there for many, many years. The coffee was great, pastries were great, and everything else. Along comes Starbucks, along comes Pete's Coffee, along comes 5 or 6 chains and so forth, with much more service operations, even a barista at the Starbucks and so forth. This coffee shop I saw over 2 or 3 years rebrand and upscale its image. It realized that if it was going to fall into the vast blue regiment of a Starbucks or a Pete's Coffee, there isn't any playing with the 800-pound gorilla. And they differentiated what they did in many, many ways, both in terms of their service offering there. They made it easier and more efficient to be able to process those orders. They were one of the ones early that had an app that allowed you to order your coffee and pastry and a little shelf on the side well before any of these other places or Chick-fil-A or any of those other places did that. And they survived and thrived and even opened up a second location about 2 or 3 towns later. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
here's Goliath playing against the 800-pound gorilla, and so David playing around the 800-pound gorilla and Goliath and so forth, and still was able to win just on a differentiation on service offering with a little technology that made it just enough for people to have that and want to have that local Cheers affiliation.